Hi, Georgia Swimming. Welcome to this week's video series. We are doing our thank you series for the Georgia Swimming LSC. For this week's episode, we have head coach of Dynamo Swim Club, Ian Murray, here with us today. Ian has been a head coach at Dynamo Swim Club since 2017. He also was the associate head coach at Carmel Swim Club for many years and also coached me as well. So very special to have him on the show today. So yeah, welcome Ian. Great to have you.
Thanks, Veronica. Happy to be here.
So how are you doing today, Ian?
Doing okay. We're happy to be operating and getting some practices in. So no complaints on our end.
Happy to hear it. So yeah, obviously you've been in Georgia since 2017 and done great things with Dynamo since then. But for the viewers that don't know you as well, could you tell us a little bit about your swimming background and how you kind of got to where you are now?
Yeah. So I'm originally from Northeast Ohio, west side of Cleveland. I grew up swimming there. I swam, some YMCA. I swam some club, high school, obviously, and I was fortunate enough to swim collegiately, Division I at Cleveland State University between 1996 and 2000. And I kind of stumbled into coaching right away. So I got involved with some volunteer coaching with the university, as well as coaching at Lake Erie Silver Dolphins with Jerry Holtree. And my first couple of years, I was working primarily with, elite level athletes, their national team, but eventually was also assigned an age group to coach. So I worked with what was then the silver group. I don't know if it's called that anymore, but it would have been basically 12 to 14-year-olds. And coached that from 2000 to 2006. And 2006, I was fortunate enough to get the head age group job at Carmel Swim Club. And I coached at Carmel from 2006 to 2017. I was the head age group coach for about half that time, and then became the associate head coach for the back half of that. Had the distinct privilege of coaching you for a good portion of that time. And in 2017, I became the head coach here at Dynamo.
Awesome. Yeah, you've definitely been a lot of different places, and I'm happy that not only that I got to be coached by you, but that you're now coaching some awesome people at Dynamo. So that's great. So I guess my next question was going to be, was this kind of a planned career for you? But what made you maybe want to start coaching if that wasn't ideally or the first thought for your career?
Yeah, I didn't want to be a coach. It is not what I pursued in school. As a matter of fact, I eventually wanted to end up in Atlanta because I was studying infectious disease, and that's what I wanted to study beyond college. So I thought maybe at some point I'll end up at the CDC or something like that. And coaching kind of fell into my lap as I was, wrapping up my eligibility. Lake Erie Silver Dolphins was fortunate to have an athlete in Diana Munns go to the Olympics in 2000. Jerry Holtree was the coach and was going with her, and he needed somebody to run the national group while he was going to be gone, and they trained at Cleveland State during that period of time. And he asked, hey, you're going to be here, you're going to be helping with the collegiate team. How about you run the group in the time that I'm gone? And, I'm like, I don't know. I'm not really sure I want to do that. And he's like, well, I'll pay you this. And I'm like, okay. Gosh. But I can honestly say, I was probably on deck for maybe 8 to 10 days, and the bug bit me hard. I really enjoyed being on deck, working with the athletes. It was kind of, just, it felt unique. It finally felt like I was passionate about something again. And not that I wasn't passionate about what I was studying or what I was pursuing, but this was just a little bit of a thunderbolt. I was like, oh, I like this. I think I could be good at it. And Jerry was really fortunate. He didn't pay a whole lot, but he really gave me a ton of opportunities. I was 23 years old, and I got to take the team to nationals. I wasn't even old enough to drive the rental car. So it's a little awkward when you got the chaperone driving things around and you're on board for the ride with the athletes. But yeah, I think I had a taste of things really early on. So I think it just kind of hit me right away, and it's been with me ever since.
That's amazing. I love to hear that, because I think sometimes the best opportunities that you find yourself passionate for are things that you don't necessarily you think of right away. So I'm glad that you found that early on, and were able to pursue that. So, kind of from that point on, I remember seeing an article about you. I think it was an interview that you said you followed other coaches around like a bad smell or something.
Yeah,
And,
I think I've done that before.
um, and it was a couple years ago, I think, when I saw that. But I remember, listening to that interview or watching it. And so it seems like you've had a lot of other coaches that have been really influential, and you've learned a lot from them. Do you think you could talk about kind of some of those lessons and what you've taken away from those big coaches that you've kind of, looked at after?
Yeah, I mean, I think every coach probably has a list of strong mentors, if you will. Obviously, my first one was probably working for Jerry Holtree. He'd had multiple Olympians, he had multiple U.S. national champions, and like I said, like he was really good at putting a lot of trust in you at a young age, and really allowing me to fail a lot. Like he's like, okay, here's the task, go for it. And trust me, I fell on my face plenty of times, but he let me learn those lessons on my own instead of being there just to hold my hand all the way through it. So I was eternally grateful for it. And he's the one that kind of gave me my coaching opportunity. I think going hand in hand with that is, my predecessor here at Dynamo was Jason Turcotte. And, Jason passed away tragically, but he had always been a big part of my coaching journey. He actually coached me for a year in college. He was an assistant coach at Cleveland State, and persuaded me to come out to Stanford when he started his time out there and work the swim camps. And if Jerry gave me my opportunity, Jason was probably the first person that made me feel like I could be good at it. So those were kind of like the two main catalysts that got me rolling. But I think my time at Carmel with Chris Plum, Chris and I had a very strong relationship coaching wise. And although I was, Chris was my boss, like I was never really made to feel that way. Like it was more of a partnership. And I felt like that was an important piece too of learning that, like, it's not just the athletes that need great teamwork. Like you've got to be able to work well with the people around you and absorb what they do well, what you do well to complement that, and how you play off of one another. I think my introduction to Vern Gambetta, who doesn't have a swimming background, is more involved in long-term athletic development, has a track and field background, has coached professional sports, amateur sports. Vern was really good just because he allowed me to think about coaching from a very different lens. So I think those are probably like the big people who I've had like constant contact with as I've gone through my journey. But and I guess my advice would be like to younger coaches out there too, like that story you're talking about. I know what you mean. It was that first trip to nationals. It was in Clovis in 2001, and I just remember walking around the deck and finding people like Eddie Reese, and just like whenever he was there talking to an athlete, like I wasn't far away. Like I just wanted to hear like what was he saying, how was he communicating to them. I just tried to be a sponge, just try to absorb it as much as I could, and I still try to be like that on the deck. Not only like obviously a big meets when you're surrounded by great coaches, but even in age group meets and even on the pool deck here at Dynamo, like we have a tremendous staff, and everyone has a different voice and a different lens, and they're going to communicate differently than I'm going to communicate. So learning from that and absorbing it, I think it's a never ending process.
That's awesome. I think, yeah, I definitely think that it's great to just, no matter where you are, especially when you were talking about listening to the other coaches and everything, it's always, I think that's great that it's always a learning process for you. And I mean, definitely being coached, having had been coached by you for many, many years, I can, personally say that I kind of witnessed that even when we were at meets and everything. And it was always really inspiring because, I mean, you're a fantastic coach, but I think, as you're always in a learning mindset, and that's great. So kind of from all those coaches and everything, did you, like, I guess when you were starting out, I'm sure, obviously we all change over time and kind of develop and adapt kind of our thoughts and process about the sport of swimming in general. And so, over the years, has your coaching philosophy changed, and in what is your coaching philosophy now as compared to maybe back then?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely evolved. I was, like I said, I was studying biology in school, so like my initial approach to coaching was very scientific. Like I wanted to learn about how to train people,
Mm-hmm.
um, and that aspect of it. And I was so very, very heavy on the science side. And I would say that the more I've moved through my career, I've learned more of the art side of coaching, because I think really good coaches have a good balance of both. Um, and I think over time, I've learned that, look, relationships is what coaching is about. Like we could sit here and talk about X's and O's and dryland programs and what you do on Wednesday and when you do your power work or whatever. And like I love those conversations. I love participating in them. But
Mm-hmm.
ultimately coaching is about relationships. Like I coach people, I train athletes. And I think over time, like I've learned to really look at the athlete's entire portfolio, as opposed to, how fast they can repeat 100s on 110. Um,
Mm-hmm.
Again, like there's the training aspects I think are really important, but um, I believe in long-term athletic development. I think, we want athletes to enjoy what they're doing right now. We want them to be successful right now, but we want to make sure that they have continued pathways forward. And that's why I love the 1800 process more than anything else, and why, at least right now, I don't have ambitions to coach collegiately. I love the developmental process. So long-term athletic development and versatility is a really big thing for me. From ages, 8, 7 years old when they walk in the door the first time or join the competitive team for the first time, all the way to when they're 17 or 18. And I'm hopefully sending them on to, a great collegiate program and maybe, primed for success beyond collegiate program these days. Um, I think ultimately it's going to come down to like, coaching the person and training the athlete and having that long-term lens on where they're going, but also keeping your feet grounded with where they are right now.
Yeah, I think that's a fantastic coaching philosophy, and just like looking at the person as the whole person, not just the athlete, and how that kind of plays into the way they train and how they respond to different things too is great. And I mean, obviously, like I said, like I can agree firsthand that like you did a great job of not only making sure that at least at Carmel, and I'm sure still at Dynamo, obviously, like I think you do great things, but I just think like from a personal standpoint, it's been great to have a coach that doesn't doesn't just care about the swimming part of it, because your whole life does impact the way you train and perform and all that sort of stuff. So I think that's fantastic. So I guess speaking of your athletes, since you did talk about you know the whole person kind of thing, do you find yourself learning from a lot of your athletes over the like having your like learned from your athletes over the years, and if so, like does anything stick out?
Yeah, I mean, and I'll be very blunt. I think coaches who aren't willing to learn from their athletes are, missing a really big opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
Like like I said, I'm relationship based in my coaching, and um, I try to prepare athletes for the road, don't prepare the road for the athlete, and which means that I often give them a lot of freedom in practice and in the way that we interact, so that they can learn on their own, and they can, they can stumble and fail and learn from that, or they can have successes and learn from that. And then I try to observe that whole process. But I think, the biggest things for me would be, like, you've got to know as a coach, like when it's time to, step in and have a conversation and make sure that you and the athlete are on the same page. But you also need to know when it's time to take a step back and not overcoach a situation, because it's not our job as coaches to make it easier for you as an athlete. Okay.
Yeah.
It's our job to prepare you with tools and techniques that are going to allow you to problem solve and allow you to figure out what your needs are. I know like I've seen coaches have lots of success with doing, what I would call some pretty severe hand holding with athletes, like managing every step of what they do, not only in a practice, but how they want to meet and things like that. And, you know, at some point, like you're going to have to let go of that and realize like they're going to move on and swim for somebody else, or they may be fortunate to be good enough to get picked for an international trip and you aren't going with them. And, I want to make sure they're prepared to be successful in any environment. So, uh, I think I'm always on the lookout for, how athletes handle particular situations in practice, how they handle particular situations in meets. And I try just to, store that away in my mind with how I'm going to, impact the next group of athletes I've had because of how they've responded to it. And I'll give an example of a former teammate of yours. I was going to pick you, but I figured I just would embarrass you. So, but Amy Bilquist joined us at Carmel and swam with us, for a good portion of her high school career. And Amy, as Veronica does, like she's a strong personality and but also very aware of what she needs as an athlete. And I remember the first long course meet I ever coached her at. She was getting ready for a 200 backstroke. I think it was maybe like a sectional meet or something like that. So like we were pretty fresh and we were expecting to swim fast. And she came over to pace. And I think it was actually the first time that she had ever worn a Speedo racing suit. Like she'd always worn arena or other things. And she came over and did her first 50 pace of backstroke. And if there's other coaches watching this, like, what I'm talking about here, like I'm maybe halfway down the pool. I'm looking at the stopwatch. I'm taking tempos and I see where we're at. I'm already like, this 50 is not going to be where she wants it to be. And I need to get ready to coach really hard here because like she's probably going to freak out a little bit. And she got to the wall and I called the time and she just kind of looked at me with her head sideways. She's like, that's not right. And I'm like, I'm nervous. I'm like, okay, like I got to make sure I coach it right. And she's like, I'll be right back. And just hops out of the pool and walks back over the diving well and gets back in the well and starts swimming again. And I'm like, what? Like, what's going on here? And like she went in and did some things and like kind of like adjusted her suit and like came back over and she's like, I'm ready. And then like 250s back to back, they were money. And I think I learned that like, look, I didn't really give her credit for her problem solving skills. Like I was already going along the lines like I'm gonna have to solve this problem for her. And figured it out on her own. And she kind of helped shape me for who I am now.
That's great. Yeah. Do you have any like favorite memories over the years then of just like, I mean, kind of just piggybacking off of just, that story, like just moments where, you've like not only, learned maybe moments where you've learned a lot or just been, surprised or like funny favorite moments over the years of coaching, from the very beginning up until, now kind of that stick out to you that just make you happy or proud or anything like that?
Yeah, I mean, I've been really fortunate to, I've been on deck and I've coached at the Olympic Games. I've worked with an Olympic gold medalist and an open water world champion when I was at Lake Erie. I've personally coached U.S. national champion. I coached you to your first junior national title. Like I distinctly remember in Irvine, walking up away from the award stand, and your question was like, did you ever think that like we would be walking away from the award stand with that? And I said, yeah, I thought that immediately when I first started coaching you like 3 years ago. And
I remember that too.
so like those are special moments for me. But I think what really gets me excited, and I'm going to come back to relationships a lot, is the fact that like, look, I haven't coached you in, almost 6 years. And, we still have a great relationship. We still talk frequently. And I do that with a lot of athletes. Matter of fact, there's a group of athletes that I used to coach at Carmel that are now like, well beyond swimming. They have great jobs. One's getting his PhD at Harvard in chemistry. And like, I'm still on regular text conversations with these guys. And it's just awesome that I get to continue to be a part of their life while they continue to do things that are well beyond the pool and way more successful than any time they ever swam. So for me, those are the important moments where someone shares like, a life-changing event, that happened for them and they thought to reach out to me. Like those are the special moments for me.
Yeah. No, and I think that just means you've definitely been doing something right over the years, because, like you said, if you're still having these former athletes reach out to you, I think that's amazing. Yeah. And yeah, that makes me really happy to hear, because I definitely, I personally have moments I'm like, oh, I'm excited about I'll text Ian,
Yeah.
So yeah, no,
It's funny you say that because like, right before we got on this call, like I was going through a bunch of, text messages or sending text messages out to our collegiate athletes here at Dynamo, and even former Carmel athletes that are getting ready for their conference championships and saying, hey, like, good luck. I'm following along. Let me know if you need anything. Like, I just like, it's about people, the swimming fast piece is just a side part of it. Like, it's really about people.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think that's why, you've had so much continued success over the years. I mean, that's not the only reason, obviously, but I think that's like a huge part of it, because you really do invest in people. So I think that's amazing. So kind of going back to the swimming aspect of it just a little bit more. I have personally done a number of challenging sets that you've written over the years. And I do remember when I think you started coaching me in 6th grade, I think, right? And I remember kind of going into your group like, oh God, he's gonna be coaching me now. I was so nervous, but then over the years it got a lot better, and like love being coached by you. But like, what type of workouts make you like the most excited to write, and just you're really passionate about?
That's a tough question. I mean, like what I do now, and I mean, being the lead of an organization like Dynamo is like, coaching is really only about like 25% of what I do. And so like right now, like anytime that I really get to focus on writing a great workout or planning for practice time, like I cherish it, because like that's what as coaches we love to do and what we're passionate about. But like I have so many other things that I have to be responsible for here that right now, like I'm just excited to write basically anything. I don't know that I could really think about sets or workouts. Again, like that's probably a whole other talk that we could have.
Yeah.
I will say that I love coaching the age 12 to 14 years old. Like I love coaching it, because I think you can give those athletes real work, in my opinion, but like you can also like, I don't know, like you can impact them so well and so quickly. Opposed to maybe working with a 17 or 18-year-old athlete. So like anytime that I get to write a workout, like if we have a coach that's stepping out or is, unfortunately sick, or we're giving them the night off or something, like, hey, you want to coach like this group? I'm like, sure, I'll coach it. And like, well, I can give you a written workout. I'm like, no, I got it. Like, I got it. Like, I'm happy. So
Yeah.
I think that's fun. Like, I'm passionate about that. And then I think really just like knowing when you're writing workouts that are going to make athletes think and not just go up and down the pool. That's what I strive for every single day. And like some days I'm better than others. But like when you've written a workout and you just finished putting pen to paper and you're like, this is good, because like I know they're going to be engaged from the beginning to the end. That's what's important to me.
No, I mean, has the past year kind of given you a more of an appreciation for writing workouts then, you'd say?
Absolutely. And we're here at Dynamo, we're still not up to what we would consider like our normal training allotment through a week for like our top groups. And we're doing well, but we're not doing as much as we've done in the past. And obviously, as you go back through the past year, there were times where we were doing even significantly less than that. And I think as a coach, like you're forced into the situation where like, what are the things that are absolutely need to do, and what are the things that are nice to do? And you have to evolve and start thinking about things differently. So like in a lot of ways, like I started looking at elite level 15 to 18-year-olds, much more like 12 to 14-year-olds. Like that's the type of timeline I was getting through the week. How could I impact them the most? So like we kind of went back to basics.
Mm-hmm. So I mean, I guess that answered my next question, which was going to be, like, has your coaching changed? Or, I mean, obviously everyone's coaching, at least mindset to a certain, has changed to a certain degree over the past year, and just, because everyone's had to adapt. So, I mean, has it, I guess, other than, writing workouts and that sort of thing, like, I mean, what have been your biggest takeaways, I guess, from the past year?
Well, I mean, I think, when I coach, I'm very much a one-on-one criticism type person. Like if
Mm-hmm.
I have a conversation with you, whether it's to work on technique or it needs to be a difficult conversation over what's happening in practice, like I'm usually going to pull you out and talk to you face to face.
Mm-hmm.
It's harder to do that these days. So like you've got to be really targeted with how you're addressing athletes and communicating with them.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, like it's way more demanding on a coach. Like we may be in some cases coaching fewer hours or less particular time in a workout, but we're also spread out over a larger piece. And you have your mask on, you've got to project across these large pools. Like it's exhausting.
Mm-hmm.
I think like just managing my own energy and knowing when it's time to say something, when it's time not to say something, using the people around you and your assistant coaches a little bit better. And it's been hard from a technical standpoint because like if you're spread out and you want to use video and things like that, like it's harder,
Yeah.
Trust me, I think this, like I like the fact that it's hard. I love the fact that it's hard. I want it to be hard, but it doesn't change the fact that it is harder.
Yeah. Has there been, anyone or anything that's really helped you with the, like, I guess has there been anyone or anything that has really helped you cope with all the, the changes and stuff in the past year? Like it just really made a difference in the way you've handled everything.
Well, I mean, I think one of the greatest things we do as a swimming nation is that we share. That's probably the greatest strength of USA Swimming. So, if you go all the way back to when most locations were in complete lockdown and no one was training, all the way through to where we are now, like there's like this core group of coaches that I would consider my best coaching friends, the people I respect and I trust, and we share information regularly. Matter of fact, like I'm watching this text feed on my phone like blow up right now as like, we're having this conversation. So I think leaning on people who are in similar situations to me, or at least sit in similar chairs that I sit in, I think really helps. I try really hard to separate like my work from my home. So when I go home, like I try to like leave the swimming piece there and focus on my family and things like that. So I think that's
great. Yeah, I think that's really important to have that balance and know when to kind of split off and everything. So I guess, outside of swimming, for those, viewers that don't, maybe know you as well personally, what are, you got 2 kids, so I don't know if you want to talk about them or your wife, Jen, or, kind of your passions outside of swimming and everything in your personal life a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, obviously like my family is really important. I have 2 children, an 8-year-old boy and a 6-year-old girl. And they're just kind of like, they're exploring everything right now. They love school, but we had like last night, I got to watch them go to their ice skating lessons, which was cool. My wife's Canadian, so I think secretly she like, she wants to be a hockey mom and count on the glass with the best of them. But right now they're just learning that. They do some swimming, they play soccer, we've done baseball, we do gymnastics, my daughter does dance. I think they just sample and like they're learning to explore and move, and like that's like I think other coaches have an impact on me as well, where I was young, I only swam, whereas I want my kids to have opportunities to do a little bit of everything and make their choices based off of where their passions are, even if it's more than one sport at a young age. And outside of that, like I'm like, I mean, I love my movies. I love my music. I'm like an avid music fan. Like probably the only type of music that I don't appreciate is country. So sorry out there. Like it's tough living in the South and people are like, hey, did you listen to this? I'm like, nope, sorry. But basically any other music outside of that, like I listen to and listen to avidly. Um, and like I'm just like I love movies and pop culture. So like it's just like it interests me.
What are your top favorite movies then?
Oh my God, don't like
I mean, you can list them off. I'm just curious.
it's tough to list favorite movies, like, but probably my all-time favorite movie is Lawrence of Arabia. So like it's from the 60s. It's probably the movie that made Steven Spielberg really want to be a director as well. But like it's a great story. It's this epic story of T. Lawrence and like the cinematography of it is just like phenomenal. But like I love everything in movies. Like I can honestly say that right now I'm finally getting down and finally watching the Harry Potter movies. I've never watched them before. It's just like it hasn't been my thing, but now my kids are reading the books and they're into it, so I don't really have a choice. I'm gonna have to saddle to do this.
That's too funny. My um yeah, my sister Sammy was actually texting me this weekend about using my Peacock subscription to watch watch the Harry Potter movies this weekend.
Yep.
So that's really yeah. I mean, I think that's great. Is there before I guess we're kind of wrapping up a little bit, but before we wrap up, is there anything that you would like to talk about or add to the discussion?
No, I think that's great. I mean, I appreciate the opportunity. Great questions. And happy to be a resource to anyone else out there that could use some help. And just know that if you're probably reaching out to me, I'm going to have questions for you too, because that's just usually how it works. So.
Well, that's great. So yeah, we're gonna kind of finish up today just to thank you, Ian, because I know you, like many other coaches in Georgia Swimming, have been putting in a ton of hours, more than in past years. So we just wanted, as a LSC, to say thank you and thank you for your time and your hard work and dedication. We know that we couldn't do what we do without you guys, and we appreciate you guys so much. So yeah, just wanted to say thank you, and thank you for coming on today. It's been great chatting with you.
Yeah, appreciate it. Appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you, Ian. See ya.
See ya.